restart this computer. Desktop 2. Okay. Start with even and odd, maybe. Sound good? Okay.
Yep.
All right. All right. Define a function, even and odd, that accepts an array. Okay, so I know how to do that. I'm going to call this array, accepts an array. It should return a new array. So I'll say return new array. The first element in the new array should be an array with all of the even numbers from the original array. The second element in the array should be an array with all of the odd numbers. So it should be an array of evens, and then there should be an array of odds. So, okay, so I'm going to get this array, and I'm going to sort the numbers. I'm going to create an array with two subarrays, evens and odds. So, okay, so my approach might be to go through each of the numbers, determine if it's even or odds, and do something with it, right? So loop through array, determine evens or odds, and then maybe I could have two different arrays and then join them at the end. So something like let evens equals empty, let odds equals empty. I'll loop through my array, so I'll say let I equals 0. I is less than array dot length I plus plus. I'll get current num equals array at I, right? And then determine if evens or odds. Does anybody remember how I can do that?
Modulo.
Yeah, modulo. So I could say if current num mod 2 is equal to 0, if it doesn't have any remainder, if I divide by 2, then I could say evens dot push, add it to the evens array, evens dot push current num. And then I could say else push to the odds array, odds dot push current num. Okay, so I've gone through and I've pushed each one to these different arrays, and I could say return evens and odds. Let's see if that works. Hey, what do you know? Any questions on this one?
No.
Feeling good? Okay, cool. Moving along, array flattener. So define a function, array flattener. That accepts a two-dimensional array, two-dim array as an argument. It should return a new one-dimensional array. Okay, so it's telling me I should return a new one-dimensional array. So I'm going to just say one dim array, and I'm going to return it. Any suggestions for how I could go about solving this?
Well, I iterated through everything and just pushed it into the new array.
Iterate through 2dim and push to 1dim. So wouldn't that give us 1 and then 2, 3, and then 4? How would that flatten the array?
You have to do array is array.
Array is array. Oh, okay, cool. Awesome. I like that. So do like for let I equals 0, I is less than 2dim array dot length I plus plus. Love it. Okay, so you're saying that I'll get the current element, let current element equals 2dim array at I, and if that is an array, if array dot is array, if the current element is an array, then like loop through it and add its elements. And then otherwise just add it to 1dim array. If it's not an array, I can just add it, right? I could say 1dim array dot push current L. So maybe a different for loop, a let for j equals 0, j is less than current element dot length, and then j plus plus 1 dim array dot push current L at j. Something like that. Hey, cool. Does that track with everyone?
Yeah, I did it very similarly, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Moving along. Zoo inventory. Okay, let's check out. Define a function zoo inventory. Okay, I can do that. It takes in an array of animal facts. Animal facts. Zoo inventory should return a new flat array. Each element in the new array should be a sentence about each of the animals in a zoo. So I'm going to say let sentences equals my new flat array, and then I'll return sentences. So they give me the kind of structure of these animal facts. I have several, I guess, rows here, or several like arrays. Each array has, let's see, King Kong, and then a second element called with gorilla and 42, and then Nemo, fish, and 5, Puxatani, Phil, and groundhog, and 11. And then it wants the output to be King Kong, the gorilla, is 42. Nemo, the fish, is 5. Puxatani Phil, the groundhog, is 11. Does anybody see any similarities about the way that these are constructed, the way that the arrays are set up?
Yeah, each item of the original array has 2 items in it.
Mm-hmm.
The second item being an array of itself of 2 items.
Yeah, okay, cool. So each one has like one string value and then one array item, right?
Yeah.
is there like in comparing it with the sentences, do we see any any relations like King Kong? Is there any way we could map these or like give
I
yeah.
mean, well, what I really noticed was that the animal facts were on the same row always, so they were within the same array.
They were within the same array. Yeah, they're within the same. King Kong the gorilla is 42.
Yeah,
Yeah, great.
yeah. It was
That's-
well, talking about. Sorry, to interrupt.
No,
really,
no,
but,
no.
yeah, I mean, considering that thing that you demonstrated before about going in a diagonal through
Mhm.
different arrays, in this case, each one of the arrays, considering that the nested arrays are a grid,
Mhm.
then all the corresponding information was within a single row. So I just had to go within the same row and only increase the index for that same row. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
No, that makes perfect sense. So so each all of the info for each sentence will be on each row of animal facts.
Yeah.
So that I could loop through animal facts, right? I0, I is less than animal facts dot length and I plus plus. And so each time I loop through one of these records, I could construct a sentence from just that row. So I could say like, let current fact equals animal facts at I, and everything I need to build my sentence is here, right? Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really great. Okay, so then that begs the question, like I have info and I have enough info to build a sentence. What info do I need to build a sentence? How are these sentences constructed?
They should all be made a string.
Sure, yeah. What are the contents of the string?
Name, animal, age.
Name, animal, age. Okay. Where can I find
Is,
what did you say?
we also need to add a the and an is and a period at the end of each one too.
Okay, cool. All right. So let's do let my sentence equals, you said is the, and a period. And I'm going to put stuff in between here. And what I'm going to put in is name, let's see, name the animal is age, right? That's more or less how it's going to be.
Yep.
Oh, okay, so here's my question. At what index can I find for this first sentence? King Kong the gorilla is 42. At what index, where in this array can I find the name?
Index 0.
Index 0. Okay. At what index or like indices can I find animal? Gorilla.
1 0.
1 0. Okay. And what about age?
1 1.
1
1
1.
1. Awesome. Okay. So moving down to the next one, where can I find Nemo?
Same index.
Same index. Awesome. So you're telling me then that I know what index I can find each of name, animal, and age are in for each row, that all of the information I need to create a sentence is contained within each row. That's awesome. That means that I can loop through all my facts and extract each of these bits of information at a like a similar spot each time, at a reliable spot each time. So I could replace this with something like current fact at 0, right, for name plus the, and I could replace this with this current fact at, I think we said 1, 0 for the animal species or animal type. And then finally, I could do something like current fact at 1, 1 for age. Right? Okay, so I'm going to get my sentence, and then I'm going to add my sentence to sentences. Sentences dot. Ooh, dot type push. My sentence. Something like that. Unexpected identifier. Where is it? It's got to be up here. Line 8. Let sentence current.
You're missing
fact.
plus sign before
Yes,
current
I
fact.
am. Yes, I am. Thank you. Let's try that. Boom. Okay, cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Moving along. Okay. Make grid. Gonna make a grid. Let's see. Write a function, make grid. Okay. And it accepts 2 arguments, num columns, num rows. Make grid should return a 2-dimensional array that represents a grid with the given dimensions. So I pass in 3 and 4. I should end up with 4 rows with 3 columns starting at 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I'm going to pass in num columns, and that should have a values of 1 to whatever num columns is. And then it should repeat that for each row, right? That's kind of another way to say it. It should go like if it's 3, it should be 1, 2, and 3. And it should do that for the number of rows that we have. Okay.
Yeah.
So this seems an awful lot like a loop, right? This seems like I could start at 1, and then whatever I pass in here, I could push to an array like a counter number up. So like something like let's say I starts at 1, right? Because this starts at 1, and then I is less than or equal to, because this is 3, right? So it's 1, 2, 3. So it includes whatever num columns is. I plus plus. Let's even say let column array equals this, equals an empty array, and I'll say column array dot push I. And then down here at the bottom, I'm going to console log whatever column array is, and I'll open up my console so I can see it. And this isn't gonna fit this. Oh yeah, okay, cool. So it looks like the first one maybe is just 1, 1, and 1. Then we do 3 and 6. So we have 3. So 1, 2, 3. for 5, I get an array of 1 through 5, and then for 2, I get an array of 1 and 2. Okay, cool. So that kind of checks off my first like thought about this. Any questions on that part of it? On what I'm doing there?
When you push I, it's pushing every this number, right? Just like 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, good question. Okay, so that was kind of like the first part of what I wanted to do. And then the second part was repeat that for each row. So repeat that for each row. I have a number of rows. I have a given number of rows. So if it's 4, I'm going to do that 4 times. If it's 5, I'm going to do it 5 times, right? So I have a thing in JavaScript I can use that will do something a certain amount of times. I could say, okay, for let's say row equals, we're going to start off at, I guess we could start off at 1 and do like row is less than or equal to num rows, and then do row plus plus, right? And I want to do this for however many row count things there are, right? Okay, so what I could do is I could console log this out, or what I could also do is say let grid equals an empty array, and then I could say, okay, I could call this my row, and I could, after I push my column numbers to my row, I could say, okay, push my row to the grid. Grid dot push my row. And then return grid. So let's get rid of this. And then let's try running this. Boom. Okay, cool. Any questions on that and how I thought through that? Cool. Awesome. Okay, let's try remove columns. All right, write a function, remove columns, that accepts 2 arguments. It accepts a 2-dimensional array called original grid and num columns, okay? Remove columns should return a new grid, okay? That tells me that I should get a new array ready, and then I should return it at the end. With the correct number of columns removed, okay? So it looks like this is going to pass in a grid, and then it's going to say 2, and I should remove this column and this column. Okay. So in that case, what I would end up with is I would add this one, and then I would stop, and then I would add start here, and I would stop and start here and stop. So it's less, it seems like it's less about removing and more about figuring out where to stop, especially since I have this new grid. I could loop through my grid, my nested array, and I could add things to new grid. And then based on num columns, the number of columns that I'm supposed to quote unquote remove, I could just stop pushing, right? I could, and maybe that is in relation to the end. This is 1, 2 columns from the end. So whatever number gets passed in, I need to do, I need my index of where I stop to be that many from the end. So maybe like just to push everything to the grid, let I equal 0. We're going to say I is less than, even, you know what, let's call this row. Row original grid. So for each row, I'm gonna go through all the rows. I'm not getting rid of any rows, right? So it makes sense to go through each row, do row plus plus, and say let current row equals original grid at row, whatever the row is. Get the current row, and then for each row, right now, let's just add everything to this new grid, and we'll adjust from there. So the way I would do that, right, is I would say let call equals 0, stop when call is less than current row dot length, call plus plus, right? I'm just going to add everything to this grid. I'm going to go for each row, go through all of its elements, add those to the new grid. So let's say maybe we can say like let new row equals an empty row, and then say new row dot push whatever current row at call is. Yeah? Are we all together on this so far?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So I've gone through each of these and I've pushed, push, 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 push. So now it seems like when I'm pushing the columns, when I'm pushing the elements in each of these arrays, this, I need to stop 2 before the end, or however, whatever this number is, that before the end of the array. Okay, cool. So I think what I could maybe do is say current row dot length minus num columns. So just change my stop condition to be a little less. Ooh. Maybe I did it wrong. 0 to be to equal just 2. Returns a grid with 1 column removed given the number 1. Is that what I want to do? Interesting. Given just the number 1, original grid 1, expected the length. Oh, you know why? It's because I need to do new grid dot push new row. I need to add whatever I add like to this new row. I need to put that new row into the grid. Cool. All right. Cool. Did that track on how I went about doing that? Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Cool. Sweet. My join. Let's do my join. My join accepts 2 arguments, an array and a separator. Okay. Array and a separator. Okay, so should return a string with all of the elements from the array joined together. So that sounds an awful lot like it's going to be a new string, like joined string. And I'm going to start it off as empty, and I'm going to return joined string. And I maybe will loop through all of the elements in the array and add them together, or add them to this join string, maybe. So like let I equals 0, I is less than array.length, I plus plus. Yeah. Joined string plus equals array at I plus the separator, something like that. Whoa. Okay, interesting. So I passed a couple of tests, but where I'm failing out is this has passed in and here. It's passed in Beyonce, Kelly, and Michelle, and I have an extra and that I don't want. Interesting. Okay, so it looks like I'm adding the separator always here. One thing I could probably do, because it looks like I don't want to do the last one, is I could do array.length -1. So do that all the way until the last one. That's going to give me Beyonce and Kelly, and I can pop Michelle in here now, right? I could do something like joined string plus equals array at array.length at the last position, whatever length is -1. Awesome, cool. Returns a string with all of the array elements joined together using a comma as the default separator. Okay, so if separator is not provided, default to a comma. So I could say if separator is undefined, right? Because that'll be the default value if it's not provided. I could say separator is a comma. And there you go. Returns a string that replaces null or undefined values with an empty string. Okay, cool. So I could go through each of these, and if array at I is either null or an empty, or null or undefined, replace it with an empty string. So I could say like array at I is equal to null, or array at I is equal to what was it, undefined, then say maybe like array. Well, we don't want to change the original array, so what we could do is just do like whoop. What I could do is something like let current element equals what I could do is have it default as an empty string if it's not equal to null and it's not undefined. I could say current element equals array at I, and then just add current element. Yeah, something like that. Boom. Cool. So a little bit of a step process there. Is it clear how I went about doing that?
Yes.
Hey, awesome. Any questions? Okay, we are almost out of time here. So I'm going to leave the last two